Way of the Words. It happened in a small town of Hitler's heartland. The flow of more suffering was pumped nicely out, and a small piece of it had now arrived. Jews were being marched through the outskirts of Munich, and one teenage girl somehow did the unthinkable and made her way through to walk with them. When the soldiers pulled her away and threw her to the ground, she stood up again. She continued. The morning was warm, another beautiful day for a parade. The soldiers and Jews made their way through several towns and were arriving now in Molking. It was possible that more work needed to be done in the camp, or several prisoners had died. Whatever the reason, a new batch of fresh, tired Jews was being taken on foot to Dachau. As she always did, Liesel ran to Munich Street with the usual band of onlookers. Whenever there's a parade of Jews, Liesel good watches them because she wants to find Max. Heil Hitler. She could hear the first soldier from far up the road and made her way toward him through the crowd to meet the procession. The voice amazed her. It made the endless sky into a ceiling just above his head, and the words bounced back, landing somewhere on the floor of limping Jewish feet. Their eyes. They watched the moving street one by one, and when Liesel found a good vantage point, she stopped and studied them. She raced through the files of face after face, trying to match them to the Jew who wrote the standover man and the word shaker. Feathery hair, she thought. No, hair like twigs. That's what it looks like when it hasn't been washed. Look out for hair like twigs, and swampy eyes and a kindling beard. There were so many of them. So many sets of dying eyes and scuffing feet. Liesel searched them, and it was not so much a recognition of facial features that gave Max Vandenberg away. It was how the face was acting, also studying the crowd. That's how she found Max, not so much because he looked the same as when she last saw him, but because he was the only other Jew who was searching the crowd for her. So she was searching for him, and Max, while he's being paraded, he's also looking at the crowd, and that's what made him stand out to her, because all the other Jews were just dead-eyed and walking, but Max was looking for Liesel. Fixed in concentration, Liesel felt herself pausing as she found the only face looking directly into the German spectators. It examined them with such purpose that people on either side of the book thief noticed and pointed him out. "What's he looking at?" said a male voice at her side. The book thief stepped onto the road. Never had movement been such a burden. Never had a heart been so definite and big in her adolescent chest. She stepped forward and said very quietly, "He's looking for me." Her voice trailed off and fell away inside. She had to refine it, reaching far down and learned to speak again and call out his name. "Max. I'm here, Max." Louder. "Max, I'm here." He heard her. Max Vandenberg, August 1943. There were twigs of hair, just like Liesel thought, and the swampy eyes stepped across shoulder to shoulder over the other Jews. When they reached her, they pleaded. His beard stroked down his face, and his mouth shivered as he said the word, the name, the girl, Liesel. Liesel shrugged away entirely from the crowd and entered the tide of Jews, weaving through them till she grabbed hold of his arm with her left hand. His face fell on her. It reached down as she tripped, and the nasty Jew, helped her up. It took all of his strength. "I'm here, Max," she said. "I'm here." "I can't believe..." The words dripped from Max Vandenberg's mouth. "Look how much you've grown." There was an intense sadness in his eyes. They swelled. "Liesel, they got me a few months ago." The voice was crippled, but it dragged itself toward her, halfway to Stuttgart. From the inside, the stream of Jews was a murky disaster of arms and legs, ragged uniforms. No soldier had seen her yet, and Max gave her a warning. "You have to let go of me, Liesel." He even tried to push her away, but the girl was too strong. Max's starving arms could not sway her, and she walked on between the filth, the hunger, and confusion. After a long line of steps, the first soldier noticed. "Hey!" he called in. He pointed with his whip. "Hey, girl, what are you doing? Get out of there." When she ignored him completely, the soldier used his arm to separate the stickiness of people. He shoved them aside and made his way through. He loomed above her as Liesel struggled on and noticed the strangled expression on Max Vandenberg's face. She had seen him afraid, but never like this. The soldier took her. His hands manhandled her clothes. She could feel the bones in his fingers and the ball of each knuckle. They tore at her skin. I said, get out. He ordered her, and now he dragged the girl to the side and flung her into the wall of onlooking Germans. It was getting warmer. The sun burned her face. The girl had landed sprawling with pain, but now she stood again. She recovered and waited. She re-entered. This time, Liesel made her way through from the back. Oh, she keeps trying to get back in. Ahead, she could just see the distinct twigs of hair and walked again toward them. This time, she did not reach out. She stopped. Somewhere inside her were the souls of words. They climbed out and stood beside her. Max, she said. He turned and briefly closed his eyes as the girl continued. There was one strange small man, she said. Her arms were loose, but her hands were fists at her side. But there was a word shaker, too. One of the Jews on his way to the cow had stopped walking now. He stood absolutely still as the others swerved morosely around him, leaving him completely alone. His eyes staggered, and it was so simple. The words were given across from the girl to the Jew. They climbed on to him. The next time she spoke, the question stumbled from her mouth. Hot tears fought for room in her eyes as she would not let them out. Better to stand resolute and proud, let the words do all of it. Is it really you, the young man asked. She said, Is it from your cheek that I took the seed? She's quoting the book to him. Max oh my, I'm gonna say it again. The next time she spoke, the question stumbled from her mouth. Hot tears fought for room in her eyes as she would not let them out. Better to stand resolute and proud, let the words do all of it. Is it really you, the young man asked. She said, Is it from your cheek that I took the seed? Max Vandenberg remained standing. He did not drop to his knees. People and Jews in clouds all stopped. They watched. As he stood, Max looked first at the girl and then stared directly into the sky, who was wide and blue and magnificent. There were heavy beams, planks of sun, falling randomly, wonderfully to the road. Clouds arched their backs to look behind as they started again to move on. It's such a beautiful day, he said, and his voice was in many pieces. A great day to die. A great day to die like this. Liesel walked at him. She was courageous enough to reach out and hold his bearded face. Is it really you, Max? Such a brilliant German day and its attentive crowd. He let his mouth kiss her palm. Yes, Liesel, it's me. And he held the girl's hand in his face and cried onto her fingers. He cried as the soldiers came, and a small collection of insolent Jews stood and watched. Standing, he was whipped. Max, the girl wept. Then silently as she was dragged away, Max. Jewish fist fighter. Inside, she said all of it. Maxi Taxi. That's what the friend called you in Stuttgart when you fought on the street, remember? Remember, Max, you told me. I remember everything. That was you, the boy with the hard fists, and you said you would land a punch on Death's face when he came for you. Remember the snowman, Max? Remember, in the basement? Remember the white cloud with the gray heart? The Fuhrer still comes down looking for you sometimes. He misses you. We all miss you. The whip. The whip. The whip continued from the soldier's hand. It landed on Max's face. It clipped his chin and carved his throat. Max hit the ground, and the soldier now turned to the girl. His mouth opened. He had immaculate teeth. A sudden flash came before her eyes. She recalled the day she'd wanted Ilsa Herman, or at least a reliable Rosa, to slap her, but neither of them would do it. On this occasion, she was not let down. The whip sliced her collarbone and reached across her shoulder blade. Liesel, she knew that person. Oh, she got whipped. As the soldier swung his arm, she caught sight of a distressed Rudy Steiner in the gaps of the crowd. He was calling out. She could see his tortured face and yellow hair. Liesel, get out of there! The book thief did not get out. She closed her eyes and caught the next burning streak, and another till her body hit the warm flooring of the road. It heated her cheek. More words arrived, this time from the soldier. Set off. The economical sentence was directed not to the girl, but the Jew. It was elaborated on. Get up. You Jewish dog. Get up, get up. Max hoisted himself upright. Just another push-up, Max. Just another push-up on the cold basement floor. His feet moved. They dragged and he traveled on. His legs staggered and his hands wiped at the marks of the whip to soothe the stinging. When he tried to look again for Liesel, the soldier's hands were placed upon his bloodied shoulders and pushed. The boy arrived, his lanky legs crouched, and he called over to his left. Tommy, get out here and help me. We have to get her up. Tommy, hurry. He lifted the book thief by her armpits. Liesel, come on, you have to get off the road. When she was able to stand, she looked at the shocked, frozen-faced Germans, fresh out of their packets. At their feet, she allowed herself to collapse, but only momentarily. A gaze struck a match on the side of her face, where she'd met the ground. Her pulse flipped it over, frying it on both sides. Far down the road, she could see the blurry legs and heels of the last walking Jew. Her face was burning, and there was a dogged ache in her arms and legs, a numbness that was simultaneously painful and exhausting. She stood one last time. Waywardly, she began to walk and then run down Munich Street, to haul in the last steps of Max Vandenberg. Liesel, what are you doing? She escaped the grip of Rudy's words and ignored the watching people at her side. Most of them were mute, statues with beating hearts, perhaps bystanders in the latter stages of a marathon. Liesel cried out again and was not heard. Hair was in her eyes. Please, Max. After perhaps 30 meters, just as the soldier turned around, the girl was felled. Hands were clamped upon her from behind, and the boy next door brought her down. Oh my gosh, Rudy tackled her because she was trying to run after Max, no, and she would get whipped again, or even worse, like who knows what would happen if she again made an attempt to get to Max, no? Rudy tackled her down good. And the boy next door brought her down. He forced her knees to the road and suffered the penalty. He collected her punches as if they were presents. Her bony hands and elbows were accepted with nothing but a few short moans. He accumulated the loud, clumsy specks of saliva and tears as if they were lovely to his face. And more important, he was able to hold her down. Rudy tackled her down good. He saved her. He saved her life, and she beat him up for it. She punched him, she spit on him to try to get away, but he held on to her good. On Munich Street, a boy and girl were entwined. They were twisted and comfortless on the road. Together they watched the humans disappear. They watched them dissolve, like moving tablets in the humid air. Confessions. When the Jews were gone, Rudy and Liesel untangled, and the book thief did not speak. There were no answers to Rudy's questions. Liesel did not go home either. She walked forlornly to the train station and waited for her papa for hours. Rudy stood with her for the first 20 minutes, but since it was a good half day till Hans was due home, he fetched Rosa. On the way back, he told her what had happened, and when Rosa arrived, she asked nothing of the girl. She had already assembled the puzzle, and merely stood beside her and eventually convinced her to sit down. They waited together. When Papa found out, he dropped his bag. He kicked the ban off air. None of them ate that night. Papa's fingers desecrated the accordion, murdering song after song. No matter how hard he tried, everything no longer worked. For 3 days, the book thief stayed in bed. Every morning and afternoon, Rudy Steiner knocked on the door and asked if she was still sick. The girl was not sick. On the 4th day, Liesel walked to her neighbor's front door and asked if he might go back to the trees with her, where they'd distributed the bread the previous year. I should have told you earlier, she said. As promised, they walked far down the road toward the cow. They stood in the trees. There were long shapes of light and shade. Pine cones were scattered like cookies. Thank you, Rudy, for everything, for helping me off the road, for stopping me. She said none of it. Her hand leaned on a flaking branch at her side. Rudy, if I tell you something, will you promise not to say a word to anyone? Of course. He could sense the seriousness in the girl's face and the heaviness in her voice. He leaned on the tree next to hers. What is it? Promise? I did already. Do it again. You can't tell your mother, your brother, or Tommy Muller, nobody. I promise. Leaning, looking at the ground. She attempted several times to find the right place to start, reading sentences at her feet, joining words to the pine cones and the scraps of broken branches. "Remember when I was injured playing soccer?" she said, out on the street. It took approximately 3/4 of an hour to explain 2 wars, an accordion, a Jewish fistfighter, and a basement, not forgetting what had happened 4 days earlier on Munich Street. "That's why you went for a closer look," Rudy said, with the bread that day, to see if he was there. Yes. Yes. The trees were tall and triangular. They were quiet. Liesel pulled the word shaker from her bag and showed Rudy one of the pages. On it was a boy with 3 medals hanging around his throat. She showed Pagyud Rudy the picture Max drew, no? Do you remember that picture, by the way? It was one of the drawings of Max. And now I really want to find it. He drew a picture, no, of Rudy, and na-moved kaayo. I love that. I feel like Max loves Rudy, even just by hearing about Rudy from Liesel. Where is it? Did it show it na ba? Or is it later on in the book? It described it. It described it before nga. He drew Rudy. Does it come in the last part of the book? Where is that picture? I think it comes later in the book. But we're so close to the end. No. I know I saw that picture. And showed Rudy one of the pages. On it was a boy with 3 medals hanging around his throat. Hair the color of lemons, Rudy read. His fingers touched the words. "You told him about me?" He's touched, Pagyod. He's touched. She tells him about Max, and Rudy is so touched niya. Liesel told her hidden Jew about him, no? "You told him about me." At first, Liesel could not talk. Perhaps it was the sudden bumpiness of love she felt for him. Or had she always loved him? It's likely, restricted as she was from speaking, she wanted him to kiss her. She wanted him to drag her hand across and pull her over. It didn't matter where, her mouth, her neck, her cheek. Her skin was empty for it, waiting. Years ago, when they'd raced on a muddy field, Rudy was a hastily assembled set of bones with a jagged, rocky smile. In the trees this afternoon, he was a giver of bread and teddy bears. He was a triple Hitler Youth Athletics champion. He was her best friend. And he was a month from his death. "Of course I told him about you," Liesel said. She was saying goodbye and she didn't even know it. He was her best friend. And he was a month from his death. "Of course I told him about you," Liesel said. She was saying goodbye and she didn't even know it. It's freaking me out that I cannot find the picture that Max drew of Rudy. Because I know it's here. I didn't imagine it. And they keep talking about it. Okay, I'm gonna find it. I have to find it. Because I know he did. I know he drew Rudy. I'm sure he did. I didn't imagine that, right? Where is it? No. It's impossible. I know he did it good. It has to be in here. And it's freaking me out. I can't find it. Hold on. Feel free to forward through this part of me just flipping through the book because I know he drew Rudy. And it even had a little caption, the boy with the hair the color of lemons. Because here we have like the standover man, the book he wrote and gave to her, yeah. But then he also started writing another book. Where is it? It has to be here. I need to find it. It has to be here. I didn't imagine it. Come on, where is it? Was it in my other edition of it? No, said no, they wouldn't. It wasn't said in his other, like his other story, but he had good. Did I imagine it? I'm gonna put it up on screen. I'm gonna edit this video. That's how committed I am. Cause I know he did the sketch good, and I don't know if it's not in my copy lang. I'm gonna find it and I'm gonna put it up here.